What is up, Messiah, Texas? This is Justin Pata here, and I am coming with your 5 Minute Friday in Psalm 6. So, the way that this starts out, it's for the music director on the 8-string lyre, a Psalm of David. So, I read that just to say it's a Psalm of David, first of all, and then that it's the music director psalm, which I always like to think, what type of music would this have been? What type of music would be set to a psalm like this? And sometimes I just start singing the psalms to myself and everything. But getting into verse 2, it says, Adonai, do not rebuke me in your anger. Do not discipline me in your wrath. And I read this going, well, why discipline and rebuke? Why are we asking God not to do that? And I can only think David was calling on the grace of God, as in verse 3, it says, be gracious to me, Adonai, for I am weak. So David is counting on the grace of God here and saying that, there's discipline and there's rebuke, especially when we go off the path and God needs to correct us. It says in the Bible, God disciplines those whom he loves. So we should be accepting correction from God. But in this case, David's asking for there not to be that, even though he deserves it, and says, for I am weak. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? So David's saying that he knows he is messed up, and he's asking God to show his grace in this moment. And verse 3 continues to say, heal me, Adonai, for my bones are shuddering with fear. And as is my soul. And you, Adonai, how long? How long am I going to have to live in this broken world? How long am I going to have to live around all of these things that tempt me? So verse 5 continues to say, turn toward me, Adonai, deliver my soul, save me because of your mercy. Your mercy. Now, we may be thinking, isn't mercy and grace the same thing? Not really. In this case, I think this speaks to grace being the condition of not getting something that we do deserve. In this case, not getting the discipline and the rebuke when we deserve it. And then mercy is like, okay, I'm giving you this even though you don't deserve it. Like saving. Verse 5, save me because of your mercy. And what does Yeshua do for us? Yeshua saves us. Yeshua was a display of God's mercy and God's grace in many ways. But verse 6 continues to say, for there is no memory of you in death, in Sheol who will praise you. Basically, just to me, this says this life is fleeting. This life is temporary. So what are you going to take with you after that? What celebrations are going to be when there's death? I am worn out with my groaning. Every night I make my bed swim, drenching my pillow with tears. My eyes are weakened with grief. They age because of my enemies. It was just absolutely broken in this state. Just sounds depressed and just very much grieving, it sounds like here. But then verse 9, 10, and 11, this is my favorite part of Psalm 6. It's the closing of Psalm 6, and it just says, away from me, all you evildoers, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has accepted my cry for mercy. The Lord accepts my prayer. May all my enemies be ashamed and stricken with terror. May they turn back in sudden disgrace. This is saying to push away all the evil, push away all of the enemies that I have. And it's calling on the fact that God accepts the prayers of his people. It's calling on the fact that God is hearing David's prayers and that God has heard the cry for mercy. So I think this is an encouragement to us at the very end of the psalm that all of this despair happens at the beginning of Psalm 6. All of these things talk about the flesh is weak and the condition of humanity and begging God for grace and mercy. And then at the end of it saying, I know God hears my prayers. I know God hears the sounds of his people. And I know that I want to be separated from the things that separate me from God. So I think this is a highly encouraging way to end Psalm 6. And I have found this to be true in my own life. God always hears the sound of our prayers. He doesn't always answer the way that we would want him to, but he always answers our prayers. And he is so gracious and so merciful to even hear the prayers of his people, much less to accept the prayers of his people. And he does that for us. So I hope you guys enjoyed the reading of Psalm 6 today. and have a great weekend, and I will see you next time on here. Shabbat Shalom.